For help. Welcome to jayspresents, where we present the best in esports from your favorite players. I am joined by Bwipo on FlyQuest, returning to the LCS. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. How are you doing?
I mean, aside from the rain, can't complain. First time out in LA for me personally.
Where are you from?
I'm originally from Connecticut, moved to Washington D.C., work on the Capitol, fun stuff. I'm trying to get you guys to go to Washington at some point. I digress here. It's a pleasure to interview you. We spoke once when you were on Team Liquid. I think it was a long time, obviously.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. But
yeah, it's been a while. So one of the things I wanted to start by asking, how does it feel to return to professional play? I know you did a little bit of broadcast work last year.
Yeah.
I want to know your thoughts on returning.
Well, honestly, it's very exciting. I'm enjoying it a lot. So many small things that I kind of forgot that I enjoyed. Like more than anything, I'm trying to enjoy the process, and I'm trying to acknowledge that like I'm not as sharp as I used to be. And I think honestly, like had I acknowledged that in TL, I think it would have done me good as well, because I think that I played under the assumption that I was as sharp as like my highest peaks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really important to acknowledge as a player that like you're in a season, you're always going to go up, down, up, down, up, down, right? Like pretty much every professional athlete is going to have ups and downs, and obviously when you go higher, and you peak, that's when you can make decisions as if you're like really on point. You can take big risks and know that they're going to pay off because you're playing super well.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like my decision making as a top laner was like kind of stuck there under the assumption that I was really, really sharp and I was playing extremely well individually, when that wasn't true.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm like going back with the notion of like, look, I don't have to carry every game. I don't have to like do all the heavy lifting. I've got some really talented players in my team, and I know for a fact that they can support me. And even though that was true in TL, I don't think I really let that show in my gameplay, because I was always at the forefront taking the big risks. As much as I still want, I still want to entertain people and put my spin on the game, it's important to let other players in your team breathe and kind of guide you in what they want their ideal game to look like as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for me like the number one step I'm trying to come into right now, where it's like I want people to kind of tell me like, hey, which direction do you want me to go into? Do you want me to take like huge risks, like a lot of like constantly trying to fight around top side, make things happen? Do you want me to go more towards, we scale and we see what happens mid to late? Like, what kind of team do we want to be? And especially for our rookies, rookie. I always think Blue's a rookie, but
he's not. He was technically, you were able to vote for him last year.
True.
Yeah.
So he's not a rookie, but like still like it feels like a bit like the
newer
rookie duo. Yeah, rookie duo. But the point is like I guess it just feels that way because my other teammates are like very tenured veterans.
Yeah.
So, like I said, from my perspective, I just want to make sure that they're comfortable in the direction that we're going, and rather than, look at it this way. When you bike home from school with your mom like bikes behind you, not in front of you?
Yeah.
That's kind of the idea I want to set for FlyQuest.
Oh, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Speaking of FlyQuest, you did join FlyQuest this year, mm-hmm. Obviously coming from Team Liquid, being on Fnatic a couple years before that. I'm curious your thoughts on what made you decide to join FlyQuest.
I mean, honestly, for me, as an individual, I think I can make the biggest difference in the LCS ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
For me, especially this last year, I realized that like player development is something I'm very interested in. But at the same time, I didn't want to give up on playing.
Right.
So with how the LCS system works with the academy teams, at least they used to for many years, all 10 teams have an academy team.
Yep, I remember that one.
Now that changed. However, FlyQuest still really wanted to keep their academy team and work with that. And that for me, as soon as I heard that, was something that I really wanted to work with, because I think simultaneously growing rookie players as well as academy level players is something that I'm very interested in. I don't want to throw in the towel yet, because I think individually I can still do a lot of good things.
Yeah.
As a player, but for my future and like when I look back, some people would, at least at some point, people would say that I was one of the LEC greats. Maybe now they don't think so anymore because I haven't played there for many years. But I realized that I was never gonna stand out more than that. And even though that's fine, and I would be more than happy to play in the LEC and play competitively, because I found that that's really my true passion.
Mm-hmm.
It's competitive league is really what I love most. I found that I think if I can manage to find a really good way to be a player that guides players, I'll have a very fruitful career here, and I'll be able to make a big difference with the ecosystem. Like, I feel like me personally, I can make a bigger difference here than I can in LEC, and that to me matters. Again, maybe I'm coping, and maybe I just like the weather. Maybe don't get me wrong.
Aside from the pouring rain today.
Aside from the 1 day a year it rains, or 10 days, whatever, maybe I just, when I did some soul searching, that's the conclusion I came to. Absolutely, for me and my partner, we have a better time living here than we do in Berlin. So that's something I consider, absolutely. But fundamentally for my career, which I did prioritize, I find that I can be more impactful here than in LEC due to the fact of the academy system, and that we have a team that will closely be working with us. And FlyQuest also mentioned that they're making the academy team with the intents and purposes of being able to scrim the LCS team and practice together and skirmish and whatnot. And I've already prepared, for example, some of my Udyr matchups with our academy top laners. So in general, those are the reasons why I joined FlyQuest, and I'm very happy here. They're also they're a very sensible org when it comes to spending money and just making sure that things are making sense. I think in esports for a long time, orgs kind of did what they wanted to because they could, but sensibility, and for me, being in an organization where I can look at everyone in the whole ecosystem and think like, this person is a responsible individual that I'm comfortable with the decision. Like, I'm comfortable leaving decisions to this person. Not to say that it wasn't the case in Fnatic or TL, but I've heard of orgs where, there's some people that really shouldn't be in charge. And I'm not that can be managers or whatever. Like, I've heard some horror stories there, but everyone is very down to earth. Everyone understands that, at the end of the day, we're just people trying to have a good time and live life to the fullest. I find that no one in FlyQuest gives me the vibe that like bad vibes. All of them give me great vibes. I'm just very happy to be here. Even the primary introductions I had with the people from FlyQuest always made me feel really good, and I feel like we align very well with what we want out of the next few years. Obviously, it's esports. If I have a bad performance, I'm probably going to get booted. That's life.
That's definitely life, and I know a couple of my friends are on the FlyQuest organization. They are hardworking, and we're happy to have you back. One of the things that we talked a little bit before we started the interview, you are known for innovation. You mentioned today, you mentioned the Udyr Triforce. I'm thinking back to the days when you first brought out the Urgot, when Urgot was first bringing onto the scene. I'm curious now, we've had a complete revamp, although the top lane stayed relatively the same aside from the tank items. What are your thoughts on the top lane situation?
I mean, honestly, my thoughts are that people are going to be really slow picking up the truly overpowered champions. And as much as people are very fast at picking up Udyr, I think that's because he meets the status quo of what a top laner in competitive is expected to be able to do. That is easy to pick up. I don't think Udyr is a champion that is easy to play. I do think he's hard to master. The champion has much more to it than appears, and even in my game, I feel like I made many uncharacteristic mistakes, even though I put in a lot of time on this champion. I think I'm much better than what I showed today. But it's my first game after a while, and I underestimated. For example, I ran in on mid. I could have definitely made a bigger difference there had I played better. Just these kind of small situations there where I could have definitely made a bigger difference had I played better. But basically, let me think. I've played 3 champions in the last 2 weeks that I think are all extremely strong and saw 0 competitive pick or ban in the last year. So, I believe that there's a lot of champions that are flying under the radar right now that people just don't think are good or don't even look at because they're either a bit too weird. Actually, that's 4. There's 4. I just realized.
I'm not going to press you on those because those are scripted.
Yeah, no, you'll probably see them on stage, so don't worry about it.
I'm not worried.
You'll very likely see them pop out on stage, and I think that all in all, it's important to be open-minded more than ever because everything changed, right? It's not just items, it's not just objectives, it's the map too.
Fudge was just telling me that Camille's hook shots have effectively become useless because you can't, the walls have changed. So it's things like that you don't.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, for negative or for better or worse, right? Camille's a worse example, but At the same time, there's going to be new angles that you can use hookshot from that were never possible in the past because of the way the terrain changed, right? Like maybe you can jump over you can jump over two walls at the same time that you couldn't because of the way the terrain changed, for example. Or maybe, like I'm sure there's ways to get creative and find ways to employ your champion that weren't possible. Basically, it's like if your champion got like negatively affected, on the bright side, I think Riot does a fantastic job when it comes to balancing, where they'll make sure that your champion doesn't just stay in the dumpster, unless they're going to rework it, at which point they just don't want to,
Skarner, Shyvana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're getting a bigger overhaul eventually. So.
Eventually. One of the things I do want to ask you about specifically is the difference between, like you said, an individual who can play multitude of roles versus people you see like LCK. Best example I could say is someone like the Shy, who plays more of that carry-centric. Do you think, as someone who's been playing the game for a while, do you think it's important to be a well-rounded player, or should you focus more on like a particular style?
I think you should be capable of playing whatever the meta demands, but you should specialize in something. I fundamentally believe, and this is a fun exercise if you ever want to run it with your friends and have this discussion, but I fundamentally believe that World Championship winners are just lucky. And I don't mean that they're bad teams. No, they're the best team, or one of the best teams of the tournament, but they're lucky in the sense that the meta suits them.
Right.
The best team at Worlds is usually the best team playing that style. Like 2018 RNG was touted to be the best team in the world. Suddenly the patch changes and solo laners are the most broken thing to have ever existed on that patch, and they destroy everything, so RNG loses to G2. 2019. Nautilus Lee Sin and just really strong mid-jungle priority running around tower diving people is the best way to play the game. FPX is the best team in the world at doing that. So, it's the same. Like, for example, look at T1, right? Would T1 have won last Worlds against JDG had it been support meta and tank top? Like tank support meta with tank tops? I'm not so sure. Definitely when it's carry versus carry and range supports in the bot lane, T1 is the best team in the world. But are they still the best team in the world when it's tank versus tank? I'm not so sure. So while they are undoubtedly still going to be one of the best teams at Worlds, the true world champion, the number one team, needs a little bit of luck. And it's been that way for a long time. Now, some years maybe you might say like, this team would have won in every meta, and that can happen. But for the most part, I think most years, meta has defined kind of whether or not you're going to be the absolute best or not. So, my perspective is, as a player and as a team especially, that you should buy into the strategy and that you should play the absolute best, because regionally, if you're the absolute best at the strategy, you should absolutely be able to make it to internationals, potentially even win the split, even if the meta doesn't suit you. If you're trying to spread yourself too thin, you will have very hard time making and creating success internationally, and it'll be almost impossible to win a split, in my opinion. Now, obviously, I'm thinking over the course of like many splits and years.
Right.
But that's what we did in Fnatic. We had a very, our culture was pretty set with me and Hilly, and we were a great team for many years. Now, obviously, coming into 2018, 2019, 2020, those are three different teams.
Right.
Right? 2019 and 2020, I think, were much closer. But that's why I think over those years we were a really competitive team and we could kind of push each other, because like our identity was somewhat set. Like we the way we played macro and the way we approached champions in draft, it was pretty clear. We valued scaling, we valued champions that could do things on the mid wave, and we went mid lane and did things right. I think in terms of strategy of like picking very greedy bot lanes and using our top laner to teleport bot lane and make sure that we scale well, like have a smooth sailing for scaling. Also a very set strategy. And my point is we got really good at, playing a style where we would pick very greedy champions in our lanes, and either individually or through team play, we would make sure that we're all scaling very comfortably, and then we would reach a mid-game point where our comp would generally outscale. Like how many games did you see Fnatic split pushing to a victory in those years? Probably zero, almost,
right.
Almost zero, And that's what I mean is like we didn't like say like, oh, now we need to learn how to play 1-3-1 and now we need to learn how to play like Lucian top with things. I think I have 0 Lucian top games in Fnatic, and suddenly I go to TL and I'm starting to play Lucian top, and it's like, well, it doesn't really make sense in my opinion to not specialize in something and acknowledge what you're weak at.
Right.
And yeah, as a player, I guess range top aren't my number one priority. I do think, I would love to be able to expand and play those, but unless it's an absolute demand, like absolute necessity to do that, playing towards your strengths as an individual player as well as a team, still in my opinion the number one way to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely appreciate hearing that, and kind of, because you're absolutely correct. We see many different styles throughout the world, whether it be carry tops, tank tops, and the like. Pivoting from that, I do want to ask a little bit just about, you talked about a second ago, talking about just your general expectations. Mm-hmm. For you, what do you think is going to be the most important thing to help you succeed this split and potentially going further into international competitions and playoffs?
Patience and precision. I think that great things happen from both of those things. Sometimes you need to be patient to wait for a mistake, and when a mistake occurs, you need precision to execute how to punish. And I think that that's something that, like, the precision is something that I definitely miss. I missed my precision in the years that I played in NA, and I notice it very much now that I've had time to think of what made me successful. Is it was hard to get an advantage on me. It was hard to gank me. I mean, maybe not as hard as some others, but I think, relatively speaking, I was a very stable and smart laner. There's times where I wasn't, but for the most part across my career, I think that's true. And that is not what I was in NA, and that is what I need to be. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately, great play comes from patience and precision. All great players in the world are patient when they need to be, and they're precise when the opportunity comes, right? And forcing unforced errors never works. I mean, that's wrong. It works, but it never works against good players.
Right. Oh, that's a life mantra I'm going to be taking with me for the rest of this trip. Lastly, I know our time's running short. FlyQuest has a wide variety of fans, and I'd love to give you the opportunity to say anything you'd like to the fans of FlyQuest.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for supporting FlyQuest. I really appreciate everyone that takes their time to watch our games and it gets excited for us. As someone that sat out for last year, it definitely gave me perspective on, for me, I'm not a big spectator actually. So for me, it was hard to keep up with LCS and LEC and stuff. So for people that take the time out of their day and truly support the team and always watch the games, always are there, always cheer on the players, even the people that get a little angry sometimes when we don't perform to expectations, I appreciate you all. Thank you. I really, I'm impressed that you managed to keep up that kind of schedule, because I couldn't when I wasn't playing. So.
Yeah, it's.
Well done.
I've been watching it for a decade, so it's definitely crazy.
You too, man. Yeah, it's really impressive how you guys set aside the time and make sure you're there for your favorite team, and any kind of joy I can give back is truly a pleasure for me, because that's something I really missed. Streaming, it didn't really make me feel like I was truly creating moments that people will remember forever. Like, a stream highlight can be exciting, it can give you a lot of entertainment, but that's not the same as a big stage match where you make a big play and then everyone's going to remember that moment. Or even if it's a pick, even when I play Singed and everyone came in and they would tell me, hey man, love that you're still around, I loved your Singed from 3 years ago, or I love your Urgot, or I love your Victor. And the point is those comments make me realize holy, when I play on stage and I'm playing League, there's people that watch my games and they get enjoyment from a memory pretty much forever, And streaming doesn't give me that satisfaction. As a pro player, I can really affect people much more closely, because there's much more stakes, right? It's high stakes. You're playing a best of one, you're playing a playoffs match, you're putting everything on the line, and people, it affects people much more deeply,
right,
when you pick that risky champion or something, and then you show them this is what I love playing, this is me. And people go out and spend their time playing some solo queue and trying the same thing, or just enjoy the moment. And basically, just more stakes involved, and I like that.
All right, but that's all the questions I had. Bwipo, thank you so much. It really was a pleasure, and best of luck in the.